I've got 3 o'clock, and we've got a good group joining us today, hopping in as we go. But thank you for taking your time out of your Monday to join us. I am Teresa Lyson, a business solutions consultant here at NICC, and I'm excited today to bring you our next webinar in our instructor webinar series. Today's topic is Influence and Persuasion with John Rotz. John has over 30 years of training experience in personal and professional leadership development, as well as a certification in the John Maxwell Leadership Content. He has taught leadership in all levels, from emerging leaders to executives across all verticals of businesses. John's passion is enhancing communication for clients that range from internal teammates to external customers. John believes the number one language spoken in today's world is the language of your audience. He has the ability to teach this language to his audiences. John's background is in the areas of metacognitive growth and behavioral enhancement. He uses these skills to train, coach, and teach his audience to become the greatest versions of themselves. If you have any questions throughout John's presentation today, please add them to the Q&A or chat box at the bottom of the screen. And if they're timely, we'll answer them at that time. Otherwise, we will save time at the end of the webinar to answer those questions. And with that, I would like to turn it over to John. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you to all those who are tuning in, taking time out of your day. We got 30 minutes, so I think there's a movie, Smokey and the Bandit, where they talked about a long way to go and a short time to get there. So I'd love to warm the room up a little bit, but we've got a lot to cover on a topic that I really like. Because Teresa, what you were saying earlier, you talk about leadership, we talk about influence, we talk about persuasion. If we're being honest, man, are those overused words? They're pretty ambiguous, and it's really hard to narrow down, like, what does that even mean? And so I took that idea and I thought, wouldn't it be great? And I've got different levels of this class, actually. I started off with emerging, and then I created what I called, and this is just the word that I came up with, was a master class, where we, like a level 500, where you get into like your graduate and really kind of start to dive in deep. Now, 30 minutes is not going to allow us to get really deep and to role play and to talk a lot of application. That's more of what the class is. So today's going to be a little bit more heavy on the information. But if anyone's ever seen me or heard me teach, you're more the audience. Now, this is harder in a virtual environment, but you really are the presentation. And so please, if you have any questions, I might brush over something that might be intriguing to you. I'm here for the next 30 minutes to serve you. I'm confident that we'll get through everything, but it's more about whatever you guys are searching after, especially when you think about influence and persuasion from a leader's perspective. Because truly, when we talk about people interacting with each other, it's messy. We're infallible creatures, and it's so hard to predict, and it could go anywhere at any time with a certain question. And so when we log on, we think, well, what are the 5 easiest processes? What are the 5 steps to being effectively communicative? Or how can I gain influence? How can I be persuasive in my talk? That's what this time is. I've done the best I could to put together some really good information. So let's get going on this, all right? So influence and persuasion, I spent a lot of time with a lot of great people, not any credit to myself. They've just given me an audience to be able to learn from. And one thing that I've learned, you'll probably hear me say that several times today, is that true leadership can't be awarded, it can't be appointed, and it can't be assigned. It can only come from influence. It can never be mandated. That the only thing a leadership position can buy you is a little bit of time, that you might be able to increase your leadership level, your influence with others. So my first question, if we were in a room, I would ask you to give me some feedback. What does a great leader look like? Who do you guys believe is a positive influencer? And not so much like from TikTok or whatever, but someone who has influence, someone who is really a great persuader. I pose that question, and certainly, again, get back into the chat, give me whatever you think. But here's what a mentor of mine once told me. Leadership is simply influence, nothing more and nothing less. If a leader doesn't have influence, they're not really leaders. What's the old saying? If you're leading and no one's following you, you're only out for a walk. So leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I believe that there's two types of leaders. One is called the appointed leader, and the other one's called an anointed leader. The appointed leader carries the title, right? I'm the CEO, or I'm the manager, I'm the supervisor or shift lead. Then you have the anointed leader that even though you may not have a title, people still come to you because of this or that. You think about athletics. I've spent my whole life being in athletics. It wasn't always the captains of the team that were appointed captain that had the most influence on the team. You can have influence and not have a title. It's because the audience trusts you, and we'll get into a little bit more on that. But you do have a platform as a leader. That's what it gives you. It gives you a platform because it gives you an opportunity to make an impact in someone's life. Now, it does give you position, but position does not always give you automatic credibility. Got to earn it. It doesn't give you immediate success. Again, got to earn it. And it does not give you power because there are levels of leadership. And I'm going to spend a lot of time on level 4 leader, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. But there are 4 levels of influence that if you think about, your journey in leadership, here's how we can increase, like climb the rungs of the ladder. The first one is model. You got to model what leadership is to gain influence. Stanford University, not too long ago, did a study on how we learn. And they came up with the following findings. It says, excuse me, 89% of the people in the world are visual learners, 10% are auditory learners, and the remaining 1% learn by using other senses. So based on these findings, we're learning that leadership is more caught than taught. You got to model it for the first part. The second thing is you have to motivate. You got to be a motivator. And I know that motivation sometimes is overrated. I think Zig Ziglar once said that motivation is overrated, but it's a lot like taking a shower. Yeah, it wears off, but we recommend doing it every day. So as a leader, you really need to learn how to motivate. One of the things Teresa said when she introduced me was speaking the language of our audience. And I just want to go back to that reference when we talk about motivating. If I'm speaking to any leaders out there, and chances are you are all leaders in some capacity, whether appointed or anointed, I would ask you, the people you lead, do you know their love language? I'm going to let you sit on that for a moment. Do you know the love language of the teams that you motivate? Now, some of you are probably like, well, what does love have to do with being a leader? It doesn't. Capture the spirit and not the letter of the law. There's a book out there for the 5 love languages, right? Physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, blah, 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 blah. Do you know what motivates your team? Words of affirmation are great for a lot of people, but it doesn't motivate me. So when we can speak the language of our audience, knowing what language they speak, we can become a greater motivator. The third way is to mentor. Mentoring is pouring your life into other people and helping them reach their potential. I would ask you, if you're interested in, and hopefully you sign up for this class because you are interested in influence and persuasion, when we talk about influence, who are you currently mentoring right now? Who are you bringing alongside you? Who's mentoring you? The effective leaders with influence becomes a product of the product. Have a mentor, be a mentor. That is another way that you can achieve and increase your influence. And then the last one is to multiply. And this is the highest level of influence that you can have on someone else's life. I once heard that as leaders, we need to teach people as though they can leave, but treat people so that they never will. I believe if we work by that model, yes, you're going to get burned. There's some people who I think that it's 3-point 8 years being in a particular company before they move. So it's shrinking. But when I want to influence, the easiest way to have an increase of influence and do so ethically is to get myself out of the way. That is one way that I think is a very powerful tool, is when we get out of the way of ourselves and put all the focus on them, the people we lead, they'll feel that. Remember, leadership is caught, not taught. I not the best multitasker, but I do see, is there another side that lists the 4 types John's talking through? Is there another slide? Yes, I will. Well, um, hopefully uh, we'll be able to talk about that, but if not, um, we can work through Teresa. Remember, this is just an intro of the class. You'll get a lot more notes. Shameless commercial, I didn't mean it that way, but we can speak into that. But yeah, that's the 4. Let me go back and I'll just read it real quick again for you, okay? All right, the first one is model. We got a model, then motivate, then mentor, and then multiply. Multiply. And I couldn't have this all on each slide because we only have 30 minutes and I already have a ton of slides. So in order to increase our influence, well, they're kind of synonymous, influence and leadership. Imagine doing this, all right? So in this class, I'd always have everyone do this, but you have your hand up here and you have your hand here, and everyone do that. I know it's parochial and goofy, but just do that. Because leadership has lids. And unfortunately, if you're a leader of an organization, of a company, of your household, you as the leader, it's not a tangible thing, but I believe this, otherwise I can't talk on this, that the leadership skill creates the lid on the class, on the team, on the company. And wherever that leader is, whether, on a scale 1 to 10, they're at a 7, the team that person leads will never be able to get to an 8. This is why leaders are also learners. You have to keep striving to increase your lid. Your company depends on it. Because if I am under you and I've got a lid and I'm striving for greatness and I want influence in my leadership and you're at a 7 and I'm hitting that lid, 2 things generally are going to happen. 1, I'm going to just get complacent. I don't know why I try so hard. I'm overlooked. Hey, it is what it is. They want me to just do this. I'm just going to do that. So that's one. The other one is if I get sick of hitting that lid, I'm going to go somewhere. And I don't believe that people are wrong for a job. They just might be wrong for the situation. And a lot of people, let's be honest, I'm guilty of it. I don't want to say I am, but I am. People left a company because of their leadership and not so much because of the company. And so this is why influence is so very, very important, right? So we're going to move a little bit quicker here. I wanted to give you some meat in this 30 minutes on, okay, great. Influence is important. Let's talk about it. What are some ways? Well, the first one, I believe, is the glue that holds people together, and that's trust. You need trust. Does my organization have good written values? Do I model them? Do I practice them? Do I keep them ahead in front of everyone? Trust is so very important. Another certification I carry is the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Pat Lencioni. That is the foundation of all 5 dysfunctions, or what we call high performing habits, is trust. If you don't have trust, no longer can you then have healthy conflict. No longer can you hold people accountable, commit to a cause, and then establish great results. Trust is the foundation of everything. And that's why I start with trust first. You need to be able to have trust. It's also the person that you want to be. Look in the mirror. If you were them, would you trust you? Are your motives pure? And really, maybe it's pie in the sky thinking, but this is what great leaders do. They challenge, but they challenge through trust and not mandate it. Another way is to nurture. Growing people doesn't mean you need people. It does mean you commit to people, you grow them. It means I'm going to stop short at saying loving people because I already used the 5 love languages and I don't want to get too mushy on you guys too quick. But it does mean elevating other people. Simon Sinek had a great quote. He says, leadership isn't about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. What a powerful statement that is. That's what I believe nurturing means. It's taking care of those people in your charge. When you do that, can we agree your influence amongst that team is going to skyrocket? It's going to be very powerful. The next one is we got to have faith in our team. We got to have faith in our team. Assets make things possible. People make things happen. And if we lack the belief in people, it hurts both the leader and the people they serve. Now think about that. Leadership is about servanthood, not about cracking the whip. At least in my world, that's what I'm trying to convey to everyone. The greatest gift a leader can give a person is to express belief in that person that they can achieve a great potential. And then let them know that. I got to do a caveat here, and I'm doing my best to stay seated because you know how anyone ever listens to me, I can get over the top. So I'm trying to stay calm. But when we talk about having faith in our team, there's 2 things that always happens, especially with leadership when you're communicating with them. One is what you intend to communicate. The other is the result of which you're communicating. You'll hear of this a lot. Well, I didn't mean to offend, but you did. I didn't mean for them to take it that way, but your words was cut them like a knife. So we need to make sure that when we intend to give faith to our team, believe in them, let them reach the great potential. This is what I'm talking about. Intentions don't necessarily equate to success. You got to make sure you're paying attention to them. Experience isn't the best teacher. I believe evaluated experiences. And if you're not getting the results, you got to look in the mirror. Maybe we're not doing it the right way. Again, I've had to do it myself. I don't want to be so transparent with you, but a lot of things I teach on is because I dropped the ball. Okay, this is a big one because we all think we're better listeners than what we really are. Listening is a bit like intelligence. We all think we're a lot better than what we really are. Listening is hands down the number one way that you can gain influence in your team. If you wanted to hack a golden nugget or whatever, a Cliff Notes version, here it is. Listen, 93% of engaged employees say they're engaged because they feel they have a voice. Not that they get their way, that they have a voice that's being heard. You want increased influence like that? Listen, slow down a little bit. Get rid of your agenda, if only for a moment. We live in a world that we have to produce. I get it. But how do we do that? Well, first one, pay attention to the speaker. Put your phone down. By the way, you take your phone out and put it on your desk, you are 10% less productive just because that phone is sitting down there. So look at the speaker. Watch the meanings and not just the words. Watch how the people act. What are they not saying? Next one, ask questions. Ask questions. This is the quickest way to become a leader, is just by simply asking questions. And a sidebar, if you've seen me in any classes, you've heard me say this before. The power comes in the second question. First question, superficial. How you doing today? We're all taught we can ask one question. When you ask that second question, you will actually feel your countenance leaning in on the conversation. The power comes in the second question, and it grows exponentially after that. The next one is don't interrupt. Even though you guys have the answer, even though you're the subject matter expert, even though you know where the journey needs to end in this conversation, let them have a voice. I almost gave a slide away. I have to stop at that. Don't interrupt. Listen to the things they're saying. Don't change the subject. We're very good at redirecting conversations, especially if we're not comfortable, or deflecting things. So we don't want to interrupt. We want to don't change the subject, don't interrupt, just stay with the conversation. The next one is emotion. Emotion. One, I have to keep my emotions under contact. I can't get into all the studies done, but your emotional intelligence predicate your success so much more than what you know, your IQ. And then the last one is responsive listening or reflective listening. This cuts down, we talk about effective communication. I might have said something in my mind, I said it very clear, but they have no idea what I said. Reflective listening, hey, just so I put the onus on myself, just so I know that I did a decent job in communicating, what did you hear me say? And that really will begin to increase, I promise, your influence. I really believe that. The next one is to understand. I have a post-it note here, and it says, be interested, not interesting. Or to put it another way, understand before understood. Be interested, not interesting. When I invest in the conversation, I don't do it all the time. I know I should. Makes me kind of a hypocrite in this class, but I want to make sure that I'm listening to what they're saying and I'm understanding. Enlarge, grow them. And I just have just 2 lines of notes on this one. Success is when you work hard to better yourself. Significance is when you work hard to better others. Enlarge your team. Get out of the way of yourself. The next one is reproduces. This is level 4. I kind of highlighted level 4 leaders. The first one is position, title only, not a lot of influence. The next one is production. You're on a winning team. What you do just because you work hard, people want to be a part of that team because it wins. They meet the numbers. The next one is permission. I give you permission. It's all based on relationships. This is where influence starts. But to separate yourself from the masses, you want to become a level 4 leader, and that's people development. We want to develop people. 80% of leaders attract followers, but watch this. 10% of leaders attract other leaders. And finally, 5% of leaders reproduce other leaders. Isn't that kind of what we want to do? We want to deepen our bench. The CEO of Coke one time said, what happens? He was asked the question, what happens if something happened to you or you got hit by a bus or what happened? He says, you know what? Nothing, because I have poured myself into this company that I'm confident they would go on without skipping a beat. Kind of a powerful leader right there. All right. It navigates. Leaders see more and before others. You cannot lead with your head down in a position. A leader has to have their head up, like a quarterback when he approaches the line of scrimmage. That quarterback can't be staring at center's butt. He's got to have his head up in case he's got to do an audible, in case something happens. He's scanning the environment. This is one way. They need you to navigate. And so just a sidebar, and we kind of talk a little bit more about this in the class. When we talk about navigating, a great leader who wants influence knows when to lead from the front of the room where everyone can see and knows when to lead in the back of the room. And they're entirely different. If I'm leading from the front, it's usually because there's some trials. There's some stuff going on. When I lead to the back, it's, okay, I'm going to elevate others. I don't need the recognition. And this is usually when praise is being given. You do it for the team, not for you, right? So the leader needs to learn how to navigate. Connection is so important. I believe it's credibility plus communication, which is the exchange of information. And then the connection is where the relationship is built. And there are principles, there's practices by getting it. It's making it all about others, going beyond the words. It requires not a lot more energy, but a little more energy. You can learn how to do it. I'm always going to try to find common ground. We're going to talk about that here in the next couple slides in persuasion. And it empowers. It empowers. When you delegate, when you empower your team to be great and to take a role of a leader themselves. Kind of makes our job easier too for leaders. All right, a lot to unpack there, but we need to get into the persuasion. I'm going to highlight 6 Guaranteed methods of persuasion. And this is where a lot of role play comes into my classes. This is where we play out scenarios on how would you utilize this resource by marketing your product or whatever. I started this because there's an author named Carmine Gallo. He wrote the book Talk Like Ted. I won't get it more into the backstory, but he suggests that good old sweet talk, the art of persuasion, now accounts for over 30% of our economy in America. 30% of our economy in America. Now, what does that mean? It means when I'm trying to convince you to buy something of mine, change your mindset, think differently, whatever it may be, to change your mindset, 30% of our economy. Now, hack time, okay? Um, One way of doing it is remember the acronym SUCCESS with one S at the end. Success with one S. To make an idea stick long after you're gone, first one, keep it simple. Third to fourth grade reading level, transcripts, right? That's what Apple does really well. Keep it simple. The next thing is to do something unexpected. Break their predictive machines. I once gave a lecture. I jumped on top of a table and started my lecture. I won't go into all that happened. I didn't fall off, but I had a CEO of the company come up later and invite me to speak at his place because I did something a little different. He's never seen that happen before. Be unexpected. Be concrete. Use stories, metaphors that people can relate to. Be creditable. Be creditable. Statistics are good, but I remember someone once said, statistics are like light poles. Use them for illumination rather than stability. So use them very lightly. Be careful with it. Emotion, pathos. You talk about Socrates, right? Invoke emotion. Without emotion, you can't have influence. Remember the Budweiser dog? You know, how many of you guys, well, I don't want to be too much of a softie, but I mean, the commercial kind of is a tearjerker, right? Invoked emotion, man. And then the last one is stories. Stories. You won't remember content. In fact, 48 hours after this, you might remember 25% of what I talked about, but you'll always remember a story. And that gets back into how can we be a great listener? So, what's the first one? Reciprocity. Reciprocity is a powerful tool that's used all the time, and you may not even know it. You might do it yourself. It's when someone gives you a gift and you feel compelled to return it in kind. Do the favor, another gift. That's reciprocity at work, and it's a powerful social norm that nudges you to give something back. I see it a lot when I hear someone say, "Hey, those are some beautiful shoes you have on." Obviously, I don't notice the shoes, but then they'll say, "Well, thank you. I like yours too." Reciprocity, and it happens at a subconscious level. So, what do? Create a free resource or gift that you can give future customers to add value to them, and they will have an obligation to come back and give you business. Don't believe it? Watch this. How many of you gone to a restaurant lately and got a mint? Got a mint. The fact that that waiter or waitress gave you a mint, statistics show your tip typically goes up 3%. Now, if I give you two mints, I go a little bit above and beyond those mints, that one mint, and I give you two, you would think one, 3%, two, it'll double. It quadruples. Your tip goes up to 14%. This is in the book from Robert Cialdini on influence and persuasion by this topic. So this is where you can do your own research on this. Now watch this. If I give you a mint at your table and I walk away and I come back, I'm like, for you good people, here are a few more mints. Guess what happens to my tip then? 23% increase than if I gave you no mint. You think that they just do it because they've got a big stock supply of mints? No, they're getting you. So here's the key. Make sure you're the first to give and make sure it's personalized and unexpected. And you'll be able to persuade people a little bit better. And this is ethical. I mean, giving them a mint, I'm not saying give me more money. All right, next one, commitment. Commitment. People love to stay true to their commitments. Okay, so what do? we make small asks first that are easily digestible that I can say yes to. Because if I said yes to a cause, I'm kind of on the line. I'm kind of hooked onto this, and I will say yes to bigger asks. They did a research. I'm going to put a sticker in your window that says drive safely because they weren't interested in a cardboard sign out in my yard. But they said yes to that. Like I don't remember what the percentage, but it drastically went increased once they had that thing on their door that said drive safely. So get the small yes. We see this with car dealerships. No offense if that's part of our audience, but when we get the yes to buy a car, this is where, hey, do you want the undercarriage spray? Do you want the this and that? And we're like, yeah, yeah, I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, that's what happens is we committed to the cause. Social proofing. You ever notice how we follow the crowd? Think about when you look for testimonials on Amazon. What are the reviews? What are people saying about it? It's uncanny how we follow the crowd. Hotels do this all the time by putting signs in their bathrooms about reusing towels, statistics, and we get into this more in class. You've got if they have a sign says 75% of guests in this room reuse towels, compliance goes up to 33% more. 33% more. Now there's stages along the way, but for time's sake, I can't get into it too much. But these are some of the things that we're going to talk about is social proofing and how powerful it is. Why athletes sell so many products. All right, next one is liking. Liking. We're more likely to be influenced by people we like. All things being equal, people do business with people they like and trust. When things aren't equal, they still do business with people they like and trust. So the key here, invest the first 1 to 3 minutes just meeting and building rapport and discussing what's been the highlight of your past week and just, again, setting the agenda aside for a few minutes and just getting them to like. There's not a topic we don't like more talking about than ourselves. So ask the questions. Ask the question about them. Let them talk. The fifth one is authority. Statistics studies have been done that people are more apt to give change to people in uniforms than in casual clothes. We honor uniforms when they have certain authority. This is why when you go into a hospital room or a clinic or whatever, they have their diplomas on the wall. Why do you think they have that? Because that builds their authority and credibility as well. And then the last one, and probably one of the most strongest ones, is the scarcity mindset, the scarcity art of persuasion. This is why stores say, hey, limit 2-liter bottles of Diet Coke. Well, you were only going to get one, but because we see limit 2, I better grab 2. The Concorde, when it announced that it was going to stop the flights across the Atlantic, that very next day, sales were never been better because they realized that this resource is coming to an end. So what do? We use limited time offers, offer discounts. When I started in business, I offered a Forever 49 club. If you would sign up for a mastermind with me, out of the box, anytime I did a book, 10 chapters or less, $49, even if we go, even if you did it 50 times, it'd be $49. And I got a lot of traction there. So scarcity mindset is a powerful, powerful tool. All right. That kind of begins to tell you about the class. Is there any questions for myself, for Teresa, that we might have brushed over, but out of time, I'm 4 minutes late, which means if you sign up for a class, I got to give you 4 minutes back. I don't want to owe you anything because of reciprocity. That was the best joke I have all day.
Thank you, John. If anyone's got any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat box. We'll take a couple minutes, if you have a couple more minutes in your day, to answer those. And we will have our next webinar. We hold these monthly on the third Monday of the month. So the next one will be November 17th with Heather Woody on your best self at work. We will include links to register in our follow-up email and look for that on Northeast Iowa Community College page on LinkedIn. So
All
thank
right.
you for your
Thank you
time
very
today,
much.
John, and thank you for everyone attending. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want any more information on bringing John into your business to talk about influence and persuasion.